Well, over to the US now. A court in New York has fined former President Donald Trump over $350 million for fraud involving his business empire. The judge also banned Trump from running companies in the state for 3 years. That's after Trump was found guilty of inflating his net worth to secure better loan terms from lenders. He has vowed to appeal and condemned the case as a witch hunt. It's just the latest legal setback for Trump, who remains the frontrunner for the Republican Party presidential nomination. And for more on this, let's bring in Washington correspondent Benjamin Alvarez-Gruber in DC. Ben, what more can you tell us about this?
The New York judge said Donald Trump engaged in a years-long scheme to dupe banks with financial statements that inflated his wealth. This was a really long investigation, 3 years, more than 40 witnesses, several weeks of trial, testimony, and thousands of pages of evidence. And the judge not only hit Trump directly, but also his adult sons, Eric and Donald Jr., and several former Trump organizations executive with millions of dollars in financial penalties. But that's not all. As you said, Trump is also barred from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation for 3 years. He does not have to pay the money out immediately because there is still an appeal process playing out. His lawyers called the verdict, and I quote, manifest injustice and politically fueled witch hunt.
And how is this actually going to affect Trump's election campaign, if at all?
We know how Trump and how his legal team reacted. The question, of course, will be how his potential voters will react. This is a legal roller coaster that we're following. It's really difficult to actually keep track with all these different cases. And despite the fact that the Republican frontrunner is facing several criminal cases and will next month become the first former U.S. president to stand trial on criminal charges, many Republican voters in South Carolina that will have their primary next week would still prefer him over Nikki Haley. That's what polls are showing. But that's a thing here, because there's so much money involved in campaigning for the presidency in this country that donors might see how much money Trump needs to pay following these rulings and might consider not donating for his campaign anymore.
Of course. And then I think what a lot of us are also wondering, do we know to what extent Trump's personal budget is going to be affected by this? I mean, is he going to have to cut down on his private jet flights?
There are several sources on that to see what exactly Donald Trump's net worth is and if it will hurt him. One of those sources, it comes from Forbes, that said that Donald Trump's net worth stood up around $2.6 billion in 2023, so a decrease from the time before his first presidency. That includes all of his portfolio. We have golf clubs, we have resorts, real estate, cash, personal assets, and Forbes calculated that he has $426 million in cash and liquid assets. That's the money that he could actually use to pay off his legal obligations. Bloomberg, on the other hand, estimated that this $453 million bill, in case he actually needs to pay it, could eat up to 15% of his net worth. So the big question is if he will pay it and where would this cuts then be made, if it's on the private traveling or somewhere else.
Well, it seems like he's still doing all right. All right, Ben, thank you so much, as always, for joining us.